Hey, you guys, welcome back to the channel. And in light of everything that's going on in politics right now with the whole Trump thing and apparently him getting brought up on charges and convicted of charges, though on the channel we don't usually go into politics, I wanted to tap in on something and not necessarily focusing on any specific political party or anything like that, but just the whole general concept or the construct of politics in the US and what my thoughts are. And some people may agree in regards to um, this kind of confusion or distraction that's thrown over everybody's eyes. So we're just going to kind of jump into it. So, pretty much for the longest time that I can remember here in the United States, it's always been a push and pull between, the red side, which is the Republicans, and the blue side, which is Democrats. And essentially, it's always been this sense of one versus the other, sometimes portrayed as good versus bad, sometimes portrayed as conservative versus less conservative, or whatever you want to say it, however you want to view it. And I don't know if at any point in time these constructs were ever really a thing, if they really actually served a purpose or had a benefit. But in today's day and age, what I feel, at least in the last like maybe 10 years or whatever the case is, maybe 15 years or whatever the case is, that it's gotten to a point now where all of it, and this is just my opinion on it, but I really feel that this is the case from what we could see here in terms of actual changes being made to the US. All of it is just a way of keeping our attention as the basic, simple, average man, average person, going back and forth in terms of you're rallying behind a team that you want to be behind and you feel that it's the way to go. And at the end of the day, none of them have the interest of the average man at heart. Now, as we kind of really break it down, and I'm not really heavy into politics like that, but at the end of the day, when the blue side was up at bat, nothing changed for your average guy. And when I say the average or the working class guy, I mean anybody who is roughly, at the bottom of the pool for the most part. Now, I know that that might change or might be different based on what area you're at. Somebody making, we'll say, $50,000 in a big city that's nothing, whereas that's probably the equivalent of a person making $20,000 in a small town. So, nonetheless, for the average person, the small time guy, the average 9 to 5er, um, the blue side has done nothing for them, but the red side has done nothing for them either. And so a lot of times we get caught in this battle where it's one side versus the other. And what I also notice is every now and then the government will push for the red side to win every now and then and the blue side to win every now and then, just so the distraction of showing, hey, one side is only not able to do so much because they're not able to get solid ground because the other side is stopping them from getting there. So, it'd be like you have the blue side is there for a year for one session, maybe 2 sessions, and then the red side will come into play. And then it's like, well, the blue side couldn't fulfill their dream because the red side got in the way, or vice versa. The red side could be there for 2 sessions and then all of a sudden the blue side comes in. They'd be like, oh, the red side, we were almost where we needed to be, but the blue side stopped us. Which at the grand scheme of it, it's all a game. It's all nonsense. It's not true at all. The blue and the red both have the exact same agenda, which is keep the working class and poor man down and the rich class to stay rich. In addition to that, as time goes on, they try to separate and increase the gap between the rich and the working class. So basically, we've gotten to the point now where there's this illusion that people think middle class still exists, and for the most part it doesn't. But they'll tell somebody who makes maybe in a big city, and I'm saying this because I am from being in a big city, but this could apply, like I said in the beginning, do the math to convert it towards being in a small town. But to give the illusion that someone who maybe makes somewhere between 80 and $100,000 a year in a big city to be middle class. You're not middle class. Why? Because in a big city, if you got 80 to $100,000 a year that you make, and you're trying to have a family, you barely can support buying a home. The idea of middle class was I could afford a home, I can afford investments, I can afford maybe multiple homes if I wanted to. If I didn't want to, then that was my choice, but not because of lack of money. Or instead of having multiple homes, I would have investments. We can have maybe like two, three cars in the household, one for the wife, one for the man, maybe one for the kid when they get older, or maybe just that extra car that was this is the everyday beat up car, whatever the case is. You get the point. Um, Middle class doesn't exist anymore in the way that it should be. Now, if you make 80 to $100,000 and you're in a really big city, mind you, and let it be known, you paying rent or paying for anything of that sort for, we'll say, a two-bedroom, because honestly, even if you are by yourself, most people kind of want to have some extra room for extra things. Even if you had a two-bedroom, you're looking at somewhere around $2,000, we'll say $1,800 to maybe 2,500, $2,500 for a two bedroom. And that's not even on the super expensive end of it. That's on like the kind of middle range end of it. You have studio apartments that cost $2,500 in a big city. So, and that's not even in the heart of the city, of the big city. That might be on the outskirt neighboring area that's up and coming. You can have the heart of a big city where it's like the downtown apartment of wherever it is, whether you're in LA, Miami, like New York, or whatever the case is, Chicago, where you're in the downtown area and you're paying easily $4,000 for an apartment. It's crazy. So my point to that is, even when you're making that 80 to $100,000, you're not swimming in gold. So that's not real. And I say that to say, so even when people are thinking that you're the middle class, you're not the middle class. Even if you think you are, you really are not. Middle class at this day and age is, you're making like somewhere, if you're in a big city, you're making about 200 to $300,000 is really middle class on the easy ramp. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make like $100,000 and acquire those things over time. If you're patient and you budget, you get yourself to a place, you can do that. But don't think that it's instant nowadays to acquire the quote unquote American dream and be middle class at like say $100,000, 80 to $100,000 in a big city requires almost 10 years of you saving and putting things away and this and that to get there. It's not instant. It's probably like a good somewhere between 5 to 10 years of you grinding after you've had your play phase. Most people this day and age, their play phase is like 20 to 25, sometimes almost 30. So that means once you start and you're ready to buckle down, it might be another 5 to 10 years before you actually do what you're going to do. But my point is, I digress. None of these political parties are for the working class man to gain some footing, to gain some ground. I'm going to give you a perfect example of that. The red side, maybe about, I don't know, 8 years ago now, almost 8 years ago now, Trump was in office. And this has nothing to do with Trump. It's not about that. It didn't matter who was in the office at the time. Got rid of a lot of working class ability to write off things. Like if they had a job where they were able to write things off from their regular job, got rid of that. Gave a lot of people about an extra $150 in their check. So a lot of people on the poor class was going, yes, working class, poor class was like, yes, that's great because now I got a little bit extra money in my check. That's awesome. The problem with that is they didn't realize they were losing out so much in being able to write things off. They couldn't write off, a lot of the things that they might do in their everyday, including if you were a homeowner. If you had a single family home, you could only write up to $10,000. Now, in a lot of places, especially near big cities, the taxes alone will supersede over $10,000 for the year. So that would mean that when your tax guy files, without even including, maybe you had to fix the roof, you had to fix your deck, you had to fix the driveway, you had to do some repairs, or whatever the case is. None of that stuff matters. You could have spent $20,000 on that for the year. None of that matters. You can't write any of that off because you already met your cap just in your taxes alone. So for layman's terms, it simply means you can't write any of the work that you did off on your house, even though your tax guy is going to say, well, we did write off the taxes, but that goes without saying. You're expected to write off the taxes. That cap of $10,000, you aren't able to write anything else off unless you had a multifamily house or you had an investment property that you weren't living in. Essentially, it was designed where only business people can write taxes off. Cool. It was the problem with that. Besides for it just being a problem in itself that the average person who doesn't own a business in any way cannot write anything off. When the blue team came, the blue side of things of politics came back into power, you think they got rid of that? No, they didn't. Though they're supposed to be quote unquote for the working class, they didn't get rid of that because they wanted that gone, but they wanted someone else to play the face of the bad guy when it came to that. And I'm sure there's a lot of things vice versa that the red side didn't want to get rid of, that they relied on the blue side to get rid of. So the blue side could be the bad guy for that because it had to be consistent with the nature of the blue team versus the red team. And so with that being said, don't think that they're not playing on the same side. They are. It's just a game. So the average person will keep fighting each other and getting distracted at the fact that the real issue is the poor people stay poor, the rich people stay rich. And that's all that matters at the end of the day on both parties, the blue side or the red side. That's always going to be the case. And most people know nothing ever affects them on the low end. They both have the same agenda of making sure that the poor people or the working class, and don't think if you're working class, you're not poor. It's the same thing as being poor, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to knock anybody, but if you make $50,000 a year, you're in the lower working class. If you make $80,000 a year and you're in a big city, I'm sorry, but you're still not able to support a whole family on your own and really thrive in the way that you think you could. It's probably possible, but it's not easy. And that's my point, is they're making the gap even bigger. So don't think that you're on that other side of the field as well, where you're playing with the big leagues. You're not. And they love to fool you to think that, but you're not. And so my point to all of that is it's all a distraction. The political parties are all a distraction, and it's worked wonders because if you think about it in the last 10 years, how many times have you had everybody going from one side to the other, fighting each other on this whole thing where it's like, okay, we're in, our team, and the red side might say our team, and the blue side is our team, and our team. They go back and forth, and it's this whole big thing. And I hate this guy who's elected in office now. I hate this guy who's the president because he does this, he does that. At the end of the day, nothing changes when anyone's in power. The people on the blue team, they always think that they're going to get their rights. They're going to get all these things in favor for them, beneficial stuff, aids, this and that. That's not true because none of it even helps you better yourself. It just keeps you locked into the system that you become dependent on rather than giving you freedom from it. And then on the red side, you have people chanting and raving, thinking like it's just going to be better for them and better for the economy and it's going to help everybody. Meanwhile, you still have people who support the red side on the lower end, especially in the Midwest towns and in states where they're still sitting around with barely nothing in their pockets, but they're still hoorah and thinking that it's going to somehow get to them, and it doesn't. You might feel secure because you're able to be like, maybe I got a house and I'm sitting there by myself, and I got some, because a lot of times outside of big cities it's a little easier to own your home, but that doesn't mean that you're actually thriving. You're not. You're just okay in your little space. You're not getting anything. The guys inside the big cities and in the big corporate buildings are the ones making all that money when you vote for them. So at the end of the day, no team is doing anything. And I just wanted to point that out because, like I said, in light of all this, you're going to see this happen right now. Everyone's going to hoorah about all this political stuff going on right now, stuff with Biden, stuff with Trump, who's going to be next, what's going on, blah, blah. None of it matters at the end of the day, just like last year, just like the year before it, just like next year, and the year after that. Your pockets will still stay the same. Your living condition will still stay the same. Nothing will change for you. Nothing will change for probably about over 200 million people in the US. Nothing's going to change for them. You're going to have a handful of people that things are going to change for, but you are not one of them. That being said, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.